Breaking news has emerged in the chilling case of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Authorities reportedly located the freezer where Celeste was allegedly stored, bringing new clarity to an already shocking investigation. TMZ has obtained photos of the freezer connected to David, the primary suspect, and law enforcement is now piecing together the timeline of her disappearance and the brutal crime that followed. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss updates on this story. What is unfolding is deeply disturbing, but it's crucial to follow the facts. The investigation has revealed that David did not act alone. Police are now pursuing at least one accomplice who may have been involved in dismembering, transporting, and storing Celeste's body. Authorities hope that one or more individuals will cooperate to provide a clearer picture of what actually happened. Here's what's known about the crime. Celeste was dismembered and decapitated. Her torso, arms, and legs were removed in a methodical, horrifying manner. Investigators described the dismemberment as calculated and deliberate. One question that has confounded police is the timeline of her disappearance. The body was badly decomposed when discovered, but forensic evidence suggests that freezing preserved her remains for an extended period, delaying detection. Law enforcement sources indicate that David's rented home contained a freezer large enough to store a human body. The freezer, reportedly capable of reaching temperatures as low as -8 degrees Fahrenheit, is now a key piece of evidence in the investigation. Photos obtained by TMZ show the freezer in the rental property, and police are evaluating its connection to Celeste's disappearance. The evidence suggests that the body was frozen for months, likely to prevent decomposition and avoid detection. Authorities are trying to determine whether Celeste was dismembered before or after being frozen, and whether the freezer played a direct role in concealing her remains. The meticulous nature of the crime suggests planning and premeditation, rather than impulsive violence. David's history has also come under scrutiny. Sources indicate he had a documented fascination with gore, raising questions about his motivations and the potential for further criminal behavior. Investigators are exploring the possibility that this was not an isolated incident, considering the planning and precision involved. The freezer itself is a focal point of the case. Reports describe the appliance as large enough to hold a torso, with shelving potentially removed to accommodate the body. This detail has led law enforcement to believe that the freezing of the body was a deliberate act designed to prolong concealment and complicate forensic analysis. Additionally, a resurfaced video from September 24 shows David in a home with a large appliance box, which appears to be a convertible chest freezer with a removable basket. While it is unclear whether this video is directly tied to Celeste's disappearance, authorities are investigating any connection to establish a comprehensive timeline. Forensic experts point out that freezing a body delays decomposition, but does not stop it entirely. The body was reportedly found wrapped in plastic, further emphasizing the calculated steps taken to conceal the crime. Investigators are reviewing every piece of evidence to determine how the body was transported, how long it remained frozen, and whether others assisted in these efforts. The discovery of the freezer raises questions about David's planning and knowledge of forensic science. It suggests a level of preparation designed to complicate detection and identification. Law enforcement believes that multiple trips and significant effort were required to store, transport, and conceal the body, indicating that David did not act alone. In the coming days, authorities are expected to release more details about the freezer and its role in the case. The investigation remains ongoing, with a focus on identifying any accomplices and reconstructing the sequence of events. Meanwhile, the public continues to follow this case closely, horrified by the reports and eager for justice for Celeste. The meticulous nature of this crime has left both investigators and the public in disbelief. Freezing the body, dismembering it, and storing it for months all point to careful planning. Investigators are considering every detail, from the freezer dimensions to the handling of remains, to determine the full scope of the crime. Authorities believe that Celeste Rivas Hernandez's body was dismembered in a calculated manner, indicating premeditation. The grisly details have shocked investigators and the public alike. Reports confirm that her arms, legs, and head were removed, leaving only the torso initially stored in a freezer. The precision of the dismemberment suggests someone with both physical capability and knowledge of handling a body with careful concealment. Investigators have noted that the dismemberment likely took place in a remote area in Santa Barbara County during spring 2025. This aligns with David's reported trips to isolated locations during that time. Forensic sources believe that dismembering the body in a secluded area minimized the risk of detection. There is no evidence to suggest that Celeste was buried in Santa Barbara. Rather, the body was later transported back to Los Angeles, where it remained frozen for an extended period. Law enforcement suspects that an accomplice assisted in moving the remains. Evidence indicates that the freezer was large enough to store a human torso once the shelving inside was removed. Transporting a frozen, dismembered body requires planning and coordination, especially considering the weight and size of the remains. Investigators are piecing together who could have helped and how the logistics were managed over weeks or months. The use of freezing complicates forensic analysis. While freezing delays decomposition, it does not preserve all physical evidence indefinitely. Toxicology reports, tissue analysis, and time-of-death estimates are all more difficult when remains have been stored at extremely low temperatures for months. This suggests a deliberate attempt to hinder law enforcement's ability to determine the precise timeline and cause of death. Sources indicate that David's actions were methodical. The body was wrapped in plastic, further reducing the risk of detection and containing odors that might have alerted neighbors or family members. Law enforcement notes that the combination of freezing and wrapping demonstrates careful planning rather than impulsive behavior. This level of preparation has led authorities to question whether this is an isolated case or part of a pattern of disturbing behavior. There are reports of a brand new cutting tool found at the rental property, not belonging to the owner. Investigators are examining whether this tool was used during the dismemberment. The presence of such equipment raises further questions about intent, suggesting that David may have anticipated needing specialized instruments to carry out the crime efficiently. The transportation of Celeste's remains also drew attention. Police recovered portions of her body in a vehicle, reportedly a Tesla, suggesting that the dismembered parts were moved after initial freezing. Authorities are trying to determine how long the remains were in the vehicle and who had access to it during that period. This step adds another layer of premeditation, as handling a frozen, dismembered body over extended distances requires coordination and deliberate effort. Social media and resurfaced video footage have provided additional context. A clip from September 24 shows David in a home with a large appliance box, likely a convertible chest freezer. While it is unclear whether this footage is directly related to Celeste's disappearance, it provides insight into the tools and methods available to him. Police are investigating any connections between this video and the timeline of events leading to the discovery of the body. Authorities are also considering David's history and behavior. Sources indicate he had a documented fascination with gore and graphic content, which may have influenced his actions. While fascination alone does not equate to criminal intent, the combination of pre-existing interests, planning, and execution of a violent crime raises concerns about potential recurring behavior. Investigators are assessing whether psychological factors played a role in the meticulous nature of the crime. The dismemberment, freezing, and transportation required substantial physical effort and careful coordination. Handling human remains, especially over multiple locations and months, is not something that could be done easily or alone. Law enforcement continues to search for potential accomplices who may have assisted in these steps. Any additional persons involved could provide critical information about the sequence of events, the motives, and the methods used. Another point under review is how David attempted to conceal evidence. Freezing the body would have masked decomposition odors and slowed biological breakdown, making detection less likely for anyone in proximity. Wrapping the remains in plastic further contained the smell and prevented contamination of other surfaces. Investigators are piecing together how these measures fit into the overall plan and whether they indicate forethought to avoid apprehension. Forensic specialists emphasize that even frozen bodies eventually show signs of decay once thawed. The storage conditions, temperature fluctuations, and length of freezing all influence what evidence remains intact. Investigators are carefully documenting the state of the remains to determine how long Celeste was frozen and whether the timeline matches David's movements and reported activities. David's pattern of isolation and remote trips has added complexity to the investigation. Authorities are mapping his movements to pinpoint where dismemberment may have occurred and how the remains were transported back to Los Angeles. They are also examining electronic devices, communication records, and travel logs to reconstruct events. These details are critical in establishing accountability and identifying all parties involved. The investigation continues to uncover disturbing details, including reports that David took a late-night trip to a remote location in Santa Barbara County during the spring, where he may have dismembered the body. Police theorize that the body was then returned to Los Angeles, placed in the freezer, and kept until discovery. Investigators are methodically assembling a timeline to match forensic evidence, witness statements, and surveillance footage. While the timeline and sequence of events remain incomplete, the evidence of planning and methodical execution is clear. Freezing, wrapping, dismemberment, and transportation all point to deliberate and calculated actions. Authorities are also looking into any potential additional victims or related crimes, given the degree of premeditation and planning evident in this case. Community response has been intense, with public outrage and concern for safety. The methodical nature of the crime and the apparent lack of remorse reported in social media accounts has heightened attention to the investigation. Police urge anyone with information to come forward, emphasizing that cooperation could be crucial in resolving remaining questions. The combination of forensic analysis, electronic evidence, and witness accounts is gradually building a comprehensive picture. Law enforcement remains cautious, understanding that each detail, from the freezer dimensions to the handling of remains, could be pivotal in both charges and eventual prosecution. Authorities expect that arrests will be made once all elements are verified. Current investigations focus on confirming the involvement of potential accomplices, clarifying the timeline, and securing physical evidence from the freezer and other locations. Until these steps are complete, the public can only follow developments through updates released by law enforcement and media outlets. As investigators move deeper into the case, attention has turned toward understanding the psychological landscape behind such a calculated and disturbing crime. Authorities and behavioral experts are now carefully examining David's history, his relationships, and any underlying patterns that could explain the level of planning evident in Celeste Rivas Hernandez's death. What stands out most is the chilling combination of organization and detachment. Freezing a body, transporting remains across counties, dismembering them with precision. These actions point towards someone operating with a cold, systematic mentality. Experts say this level of composure during and after a violent act suggests not only premeditation but also emotional disconnection, a trait often linked to individuals capable of severe violence without showing remorse. Investigators have also noted David's fascination with gore and graphic content, a detail that, in hindsight, appears more troubling than previously realized. While many people consume dark or horror-themed media without any harmful intentions, authorities are questioning whether that interest escalated into something far more dangerous in this case. They are exploring past behavior, online interactions, and any potential early warning signs, moments where obsessive curiosity may have crossed into disturbing fixation. Another focal point is David's relationship with Celeste. Authorities are interviewing people close to both individuals to uncover any possible conflict, tension, or dynamic that could have contributed to the crime. Friends describe Celeste as warm, trusting, and gentle, a stark contrast to the brutality of what she endured. The question haunting investigators is whether the act was driven by personal motive, psychological breakdown, or a level of depravity that defies easy explanation. As more information emerges, the possibility of an accomplice has become central to the investigation. The sheer logistics of dismembering and freezing a human body, transporting it across multiple locations, and maintaining secrecy for months point strongly toward additional involvement. Law enforcement is now conducting interviews, reviewing digital trails, and tracing financial transactions to identify any individuals who may have knowingly or unknowingly assisted. One detail that has raised suspicion is the presence of tools and equipment that did not belong to the property owner. A new cutting tool found in the rental home suggests preparation, not improvisation. Investigators are conducting forensic testing to see whether it was used during the dismemberment, and if so, whether fingerprints or DNA connect anyone else to the crime. Each small detail, every fiber, trace, and mark, could be the key to identifying accomplices or narrowing down the timeline. Police are also examining David's travel patterns more closely. His trips to remote areas, especially in Santa Barbara County, align with what investigators believe to be the location of the initial dismemberment. By correlating cell tower data, license plate scans, and digital timestamps, authorities aim to reconstruct the exact sequence of events. This digital breadcrumb trail is critical, especially in a case where physical evidence has been carefully manipulated through freezing and transportation. Meanwhile, the community has reacted with shock, grief, and overwhelming support for Celeste's family. Vigils have been held, social media tributes continue to spread, and many people have expressed fear and outrage at the calculated nature of the crime. The discovery of the freezer, in particular, has left many disturbed by the lengths taken to conceal the remains. The brutality of the details has reignited conversations about personal safety, mental health awareness, and the complexities of recognizing dangerous behavior behind a seemingly normal exterior. Celeste's family has asked for privacy as the investigation unfolds, though friends have shared their heartbreak publicly. They describe her as a bright, loving person who deserved far better than the horror she faced. The community has rallied around them, offering emotional and financial support as they navigate unimaginable pain. As forensic experts continue examining the remains, prosecutors are preparing for potential charges that could include murder, mutilation of a corpse, destruction of evidence, and conspiracy, should evidence of accomplices be confirmed. Legal analysts predict that the case will involve complex forensic arguments, especially regarding the timeline disrupted by freezing. Establishing exactly when Celeste died, where the dismemberment occurred, and who participated will be central to the prosecution's strategy. Prosecutors are expected to rely heavily on digital evidence, search histories, messages, GPS data, purchase records, and even video footage. Every detail matters in building a narrative that shows intent, preparation, and execution. The freezer itself is likely to become one of the prosecution's strongest pieces of physical evidence, both because of its size and because of what it represents, an attempt to pause time and hide a crime. As investigators connect the final dots, attention turns to what justice will look like. For Celeste's family, justice means answers, accountability, and truth. It means ensuring that anyone who played a role, however small, faces the consequences of their involvement. It also means bringing clarity to a tragedy defined by secrecy and calculated concealment. The unfolding details of this case highlight a chilling reality. Some crimes are committed not in moments of rage or chaos, but through deliberate planning. That is what makes this case so haunting. Every step taken, freezing, wrapping, dismembering, transporting, reflects intention. It reflects decisions made over time, not in a single moment. And that is what continues to shake the public as each new piece of evidence emerges. As the story continues to evolve, the public watches closely, waiting for answers, arrests, and eventually a trial that will attempt to untangle the truth from the layers of deception. Law enforcement remains committed to uncovering every detail and bringing every responsible party to justice. For Celeste, for her family, and for a community still reeling, this pursuit of truth is the only path forward. And as we close this chapter of the story, may Celeste be remembered not for the horror she endured, but for the life she lived, the kindness she showed, the connections she made, and the light she brought into the world. Let this investigation not only expose the darkness behind these actions, but also honor the brightness of the person whose life was stolen.